The dusty streets of Calico Ridge were quieter than usual that morning. Only the creak of swinging saloon doors and the distant cry of a hawk broke the silence. Men leaned on wooden rails, spitting tobacco, waiting for something strange that had been whispered all week: the marriage lottery. It was said that for $5, a man could buy himself a wife. Not a romance, not a proposal, but a deal, signed and sealed by the sheriff himself. Times were hard, women were few, and loneliness had driven men to stranger things. But no one expected Eli Boone, the quietest cowboy in the territory, to drop his $5 on that table. He wasn't a man of words. Tall, sunburned, always seen with a rope across his shoulder and his hat tipped low. Folks said he'd once had a fiancée who ran off with a preacher. Since then, he'd spoken more to his horse than to people. Sheriff Doyle unfolded the paper slips in his hand. "All right, boys," he said, his voice loud enough to cut through the whiskey haze. "One of y'all's about to get hitched. Lottery says the winning bride's already waiting at Fort Willow. You bring her home, she's yours fair and square." Eli's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the jar. $5 was half a month's work. Still, something in him, maybe the ache of years spent alone, made him drop the coins in and pull a folded slip. The sheriff squinted at the name. Eli Boone. The saloon erupted in hollers. Boone won himself a woman. One man laughed. "Hope she ain't got teeth like a mule." But Eli didn't smile. Something about the sheriff's tone had sounded uneasy. He rode out that same evening, heading west toward Fort Willow. The land stretched endless and yellow before him. The wind carried dust like smoke, and every mile, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. The fort came into view at sunset, an old army post long abandoned, now used as a trading outpost. He tied his horse and walked in. A trader sat behind a counter. "You Boone?" he asked, not looking up from his ledger. "Yeah." The trader hesitated, then said, "Your bride's out back." Eli followed his gaze toward the corral. He froze. The woman standing there was enormous. Nearly 7 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of warm earth and black hair braided down her back. Her eyes were dark and still, watching him like an eagle studying prey. She wore no dress, just a leather skirt, moccasins, and a turquoise necklace that glowed faintly in the fading light. "She's Apache," the trader said quietly. "Name's Tala." Eli swallowed hard. "There's some mistake." "No mistake. Government arranged her transfer. Her tribe lost a wager in some army deal. Part of a settlement. Sheriff just wrapped it in a lottery to make it look civilized." The words hit Eli like a gunshot. He turned to Tala. You agreed to this." She didn't answer. Her gaze was sharp, proud, but beneath it, something flickered. "Fear, maybe. Shame." The trader shoved a paper toward him. "Sign it. Take her with you. That's the law now." Eli didn't know whether to run or sign. He'd wanted a wife, sure, but not like this, not someone treated like cattle. Still, the eyes of every man in town were on him, and pride made him grip the pen. He signed. Tala didn't speak the entire ride home. She sat behind him on the horse, silent, her arms never touching his. When they reached his cabin, she climbed down without a word and walked straight into the barn. Eli followed. "You can sleep in the house," he said softly. She looked at him then, a stare that could have broken stone. "Apache woman does not share roof until she chooses." Her English was slow but clear. Eli nodded, backing away. That night, he sat by the fire, staring at the shadows on the wall. What had he done? What kind of man wins a woman in a lottery? But then he heard something, soft singing from the barn. A low, haunting tune in a language he didn't know. It made his chest tighten. Days passed. Tala worked like no woman Eli had ever seen. She carried buckets with one arm, split logs faster than him, and kept the place cleaner than it had ever been. But she still wouldn't come near him. When he tried to talk, she listened but said little. When he offered food, she nodded once and ate apart. She was like a mountain, silent, immovable, mysterious. One morning, he woke to find her standing outside, staring at the horizon. "You looking for something?" he asked. She didn't turn. "The ones who traded me," she said. "They come soon, not for peace." Eli frowned. "You mean your tribe?" She nodded slowly. "They think I am traitor. They bring fire." Before he could reply, a scream echoed across the hills. Not human, not animal, something wild. He ran to the barn for his rifle. Smoke rose in the distance. By noon, the smoke turned into riders, a dozen Apache warriors, faces painted red and black. They came fast. Eli stood on his porch, gun loaded. "Stay inside," he shouted, but Tala didn't move. She walked out past him, bare feet on the dirt, head held high. The lead warrior shouted something in Apache. Eli couldn't understand, but Tala answered fiercely. Her voice cracked the air like thunder. Then one of the men pointed his spear at Eli. Without thinking, Eli raised his rifle. "Tell him to back off," he said. Tala stepped in front of him. "You kill, you die. I speak." The two exchanged words, harsh and fast. Then, suddenly, the warrior dismounted and threw something at her feet, a broken turquoise pendant. Tala looked down, and for the first time, Eli saw her face tremble. She turned to him. "They say I belong to no people. Not Apache, not white." Her voice shook. "They leave me to spirits." The warriors rode off, leaving the pendant in the dust. That night, Tala sat by the fire with him for the first time. She said quietly, "You did not run. Most men run." Eli shrugged. "Wouldn't be right, leaving a woman alone." She stared into the flames. "You paid for wife, but you treat like person." "Why?" He hesitated. "Because maybe I wanted more than a wife. Maybe I wanted someone who don't look at me like a broken thing." Her eyes softened, just slightly. "Maybe," she whispered, "I'm not broken either." After that, something changed. Tala began sleeping inside, at first near the door, then closer to the fire. She cooked, fixed his clothes, even laughed once when his horse sneezed on him. It was a sound so light, it startled him. Weeks passed. Spring melted into summer. The two worked the ranch together like they'd been born to it. But the peace didn't last. One morning, Eli rode into town for supplies. He noticed men whispering. Sheriff Doyle caught his arm. "Boone, you best listen. Word's out that your wife ain't rightly yours. Some folks think that lottery was rigged." Eli frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means there's a warrant comin'. Folks say you're harboring an Apache captive. They'll hang you both if they find her." Eli's stomach turned to ice. He mounted up and rode hard for home. When he reached the ranch, the door was open, and Tala was gone. Her turquoise necklace lay on the table, coiled like a snake. On it was a note, written in shaky English. "They come for you. I go first. I take danger away." Eli cursed under his breath and kicked his horse into a gallop. He followed her trail west, through the canyons, until he saw smoke, again. In a clearing stood Tala, hands bound, surrounded by bounty hunters. 3 men, one held a rifle to her back. "Let her go," Eli shouted. The man laughed. "You the fool who paid $5 for this savage. We'll take her to Prescott, get a real price." Eli's blood boiled. "You'll drop that gun, or all." He didn't finish. The man fired. Eli dropped to the ground, rolling behind a boulder, bullets whistling past his head. He returned fire, hitting one in the shoulder. Tala kicked the other square in the chest. The crack of ribs echoed. She grabbed the man's dropped knife, sliced her bindings, and threw it. The last hunter fell, throat cut clean. When the smoke cleared, Eli crawled to her. She was bleeding from her arm, but standing tall. "You're hurt," he said. "So are you," she whispered. He looked down. A bullet had grazed his side. Blood soaked his shirt. She tore her skirt, pressed it to his wound. "You fool," she muttered. "Why you come for me?" "Because," he gasped, "I reckon $5 never bought anything worth this much." Her eyes glistened. "You not buy, you earn." She leaned closer then, and for the first time, kissed him, slow, fierce, and full of everything they hadn't said. Weeks later, no one in Calico Ridge spoke of the lottery again. Sheriff Doyle said the papers were burned, the deal forgotten. But sometimes, at dusk, travelers swore they saw smoke rising from Eli Boone's ranch, and 2 tall figures working side by side. One, a quiet cowboy with a rifle across his back. The other, a giant Apache woman with hair black as night. And rumor had it that when she laughed, the coyotes went silent, because even the desert listened to her now.